What's going on, everybody? I'm Dominic with PowerSlap News. Joining me today is Robert Glover. Robert, what's going on, man?
Not much. What's up with you guys?
Nothing. We just got back from Vegas. We attended PowerSlap 1. It was incredible. It was our first ever live slap event. Super awesome to be there in person. What did you think about the event?
To be honest, like when I showed up the first time, not for Slap One, but for the I guess the ranking choice, is the best way to call it. It was for me. It was kind of just I saw an ad on Facebook and I was like, that seems interesting. I'm not doing anything. Let's go. And then I got there and I was like looking around and like a bunch of black belts are near me and I'm like, I'm gonna go to my room. Because like I do martial arts, but nowhere near that level. So I was just like, I'm gonna like try not to piss anybody off. Later, guys.
Well, I think that's really funny the way you got into it. That seems to be a big pattern with these guys. Whenever I talk to everybody, everyone's like, man, I saw a clip on TikTok. I saw something on Facebook. This looked interesting. Some people said, buddy, I saw paid promotions. I saw paid tryouts and I said, I'm there, you know? So everyone seems to kind of like really jumped on that initial post that they saw. Does you think it was the same post that got your attention?
Well, so to be honest, I actually got sent it. So I grew up in foster care, and I recently got reacquainted with my birth father, and he actually sent it to me after finding out that I also do martial arts, since he was a fighter. And so he's like, "Hey, do you want to do this?" And he said that Sal wanted to promote us as a father-son team, and I was like, "Okay, I don't mind." And then unfortunately, he had to bow out due to some stuff with his current wife, but I still showed up for it, and we ended up not being able to put that dynamic on it. But that was how I got acquainted with it. I wouldn't have normally seen it since the circles I roll in are typically on Facebook. They're like the bare knuckle side of it or the jujitsu side of it, stuff like that. Just people who are trying to make a name for themselves fighting in smaller productions. So I probably would never even saw it if it wasn't for getting sent it.
So I think that's interesting that you said your father there had sent that to you. As somebody who follows bare knuckle, the public sentiment about slap fighting has been awful, right? People are saying that this
Oh
is
yeah.
barbaric, this is like crazy, all this stuff. I feel like bare knuckle didn't get as much hate as power slap is getting. Do you feel it's warranted? And I'm asking you because your father gave you this, like somebody who's like, hey, look at participating in this. You wouldn't think like someone who cares about you would give you this. Like very clearly, it's not the same, right?
Well, so the thing about fighting in general is that its nature is barbaric. You're gonna get hit. Like that's the point, right? With flat fighting, I think the part that shocks a lot of people is that if I'm in a bare knuckle fight, I can dodge, I can block, I can. There are steps that I can take to make myself safer, right? And there's a standard of professionalism that comes with I'm an established fighter. I have these people who say this guy's good enough to be here, right? And that didn't exist for Power Slap, right?
Mm.
So they basically just sent out a Facebook ad and said, "Hey, if you can take a hit, show up," you know. And to me, that's a lot like giving out pharmaceutical drugs to street dealers. You know, it doesn't really translate. But as far as it being barbaric, I mean, I was born in 2002. I don't know anyone who hasn't taken a pretty hardcore hit to the face. Like, there's not really, there are a lot more sports out there that are vastly more dangerous than slap fighting. Like, yes, it is kind of just taking a palm strike to the face, but at the same time, like, it's nowhere near football,
Yeah, that's
like,
true.
or rugby in Australia. Like, I was in Australia, dudes in rugby with no pads. Like, they're getting a 300-pound dude on steroids who's going to slam into them, and they're not going to avoid it, you know? So I think a lot of it is just that because it's in the realm of fighting where there's a standard of professionalism, instead of just, hey, we got this dude fresh out of school, let me go put him on a field. Instead of that being the standard is you have to work your way into the door, you know? And I think that created a bit of a stigma there.
So you feel it would have been maybe received a little bit better if instead of just rushing right to like a pro league, there was more of an amateur league that everyone had to fight in first. No championship, no belt. We're kind of figuring out the rules, figuring out the training, and then year 2 we hit with the pro league, and only people who participated in the training come in. Like more of a build up. You're saying?
Yeah, if there was more of a structure to it before, like for instance, during my match, they were still trying to figure out the rules, and I was one of the last matches that day. Like, from what I heard, like I held a rag when I got slapped. From what I heard, they brought out a noodle.
Yeah.
You know, like from what I heard, they started with having 2 minutes of recovery time, and they ended up shortening that. You know, like they ended up changing the rules as they went. So people who fought before me didn't have the same rules I did. It was like they had set up an idea of what they thought they wanted to happen, but they hadn't built up any kind of system on how to make it happen. They basically just brought a bunch of people out and said, "We'll wing it," you know, which is
Did you
fine, but it's not going to get you negative press release.
Did you compete when the stepping rule was still active? Were you in that initial first batch of was the stepping rule there? Because you're talking about the towel. I'm thinking maybe stepping was probably
Yeah, I
still
was.
included.
So when I got on the stage, from when I got told what the rules were, stepping was allowed. When I got on the stage, stepping was not allowed. So I actually got fouled for that.
Oh. So the change happened that rapidly from pre-fight to fight. They were changing rules.
Yeah. So like they brought out a noodle to fight after mine.
That's
And the guy on and the ref gave me like a minute and a half, I think it was, to recover from a slap.
okay.
But from what I understand, that's not what it is now.
No, they limited now. I believe it's a minute now. And I think the most recent change that I saw at the event is they changed the chalk from a powder to a ball now. And I'm not too sure how much fighters really like that. They said they changed it to stop the showboating, the people like blowing the chalk in the air and doing all that stuff. Other people are saying the ball's not the same, right? So I think they're still trying to figure this thing out a little bit.
I don't even know about the chalk. I think I put it on when I first got in there, but I don't think I reapplied it like at all. So I don't really know too much about chalk. I used to use it when I would do parkour bar work, but like not too much outside that.
The other thing that we're seeing a lot of people do, and I don't know if this is going to be addressed, but I'd like to get your thoughts on it because I found every fighter has a different opinion. The height versus the weight. And why I bring that up is because now we're seeing the fighters do the like low extension, they bring in their knees in it. It's almost like a squat explosion. Do you think they're going to change the rules again to possibly not allow the squat and you'd have to keep more of just like a bend?
I think that if they do change that, they will have to mitigate the height difference. So like Asbury is like 6'2", 6'3". I'm 5'8". I basically had to jump to hit him, Like, so if you were to take out the squat, you basically have to make sure that all of your fighters are the same weight and same height. Like, I don't really have any opinions on whether it's good or bad because it's going to be what it's going to be. And that's just going to be an aspect of the skill that's required. Like if the UFC allowed people to kick people in the nuts, there'd probably be a lot more Krav Maga fighters who are able to compete, but they can't because they don't. So there's the skill aspect, and then there's a skill pertaining to the rules aspect. And I think that will shift if they have to do that.
Well, when I was talking
whether
people,
it's good or bad is what's up?
sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. I think we got a little bit of a delay. When I was talking to the people in Vegas, everyone seemed to want to be the shorter fighter because they said on that explosion, you kind of come up under the chin and it's like almost borderline clubbing that the refs sort of allow. It's more of like a harder to catch.
So not to create any fights, but if that's your thought process, you're coming at it from the standpoint of what I would view as a dishonorable fighter. Because there's a point in your chin, I think it's about right here, where if you hit it, it makes your brain. So when you get punched in the face, your brain rockets around your skull. That's what knocks you unconscious, right? Yeah. There's a point in your face right about here that is more in depth with that. So if you can not, like a lot of boxers, when they hit that spot, it's an instant knockout. And to me, if you're in a sport where the main function of competition is essentially, can you take these hits? If you're looking for that spot, you're looking to win the fight as soon as possible instead of put on a show. And that's what it is, putting on a show. So whenever I see someone looking to just kind of cross the line between what's allowed and what's not allowed, especially in a sport where you're taking hits that could cause brain damage, I'm probably not going to enjoy being near that person. If it was up to me, I would just say, all of you just hit him on the cheek. Shut up. It's not that hard, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
if you can't do it, you can't do it, you know?
No, I definitely hear you, and that it's very interesting that you even brought up that point because everyone I spoke to was all telling me, "Hey Dom, it's 4 pounds of pressure right here. That's all anybody needs." Like everyone seemed to be well aware, like you said, boxing this and that's where you want to be. So you're the first person to hit me with the take of, you know what? If you are somebody who's pushing the line, shouldn't be your goal. And I think that's really interesting. I think more people probably should have that opinion of, hey, let's keep it clean. I know Frank the Tank is very big on clean slap fighting and the rules and everything. And he wasn't too happy with maybe how some of the other fights, not necessarily his own. I know he's a very, very humble in defeat, that guy, real gentleman. I don't want to take anything away from him. But I do know he's got 20 slap fights under his belt. And he was very adamant that, hey, it's all about striking clean. That's what's going to make the sport go forward. And I think that's a little bit to what you said about putting on a show.
Well, and the reason that he says that is because it's not so much about the sport going forward as it is about the sport not existing. So it takes 4 pounds to knock somebody out. It takes 75 pounds of force going in a direction to snap your neck. So if you hit somebody with 75 pounds of force in an area that will knock them unconscious and their head goes back too far, you just killed someone, right? And there have been deaths in the UFC, but there was a lot more respect for the sport because martial arts has hundreds of years of history behind it. You kill someone in a sport like this, it's over, you know? So yeah, it could propel the sport forward if we have people who are big on where they're hitting and putting on a show. But at the same time, if they don't, the sport's gone.
Yeah. Dana White did actually talk about that. I think he said specifically that there hasn't been any deaths in the UFC, but there has been deaths in martial arts and there has been deaths in boxing. There's been quite a few in boxing. The only reason why I bring that up because he was attesting that, hey, this is the first time slap is regulated. We're catching people with brain aneurysms that really shouldn't be fighting. What do you think about that? Do you think that that's what this sport needs as well? Is somebody like Dana White to put the money and support behind the medical to support the fighters there?
Well, I think that medical. So I live in Arizona, right? And we have a gaming commission. If you want to box here, you have to go to the gaming commission and prove that you're sufficient enough to fight. I can't do it because I can't see far enough to hit someone. Like my vision isn't good enough, right? That's really dumb because I'm an infighter. If I am in a boxing match, I'm going to fight someone up close because I'm smaller and I don't have the range, right? So the medical, it's not so much that we need the funding for the medical as it is the medical practices themselves have to be adjusted for the sport you're in, right? So like you have to be able to assess people based on their individual characteristics, right? So if you're going to be slap fighting and you could have an IQ of 50, right? But if you can land that hit, you can fight, right? And you might go into that medical and they'll go, hey, your brain's not up to snuff. But there's nothing wrong with you fighting. In fact, that might be one of the only jobs where you can succeed exponentially in, you know? And so I think that having more medical regulations on who's allowed to fight isn't really great. I think you need more regulations on what happens during a fight. Right? Because right now, as it stands, as far as I know, the only thing we're able to do is basically give someone recovery time. But I don't think I've seen anyone disqualified from a fight if they could continue when they shouldn't. Like in boxing, you have the towel, right? You throw in the towel, you're done. But I haven't seen that in slap fighting at all. No. So it's not so much who someone is outside the ring as it is who someone is when they're in the ring, you know? And that does need to be regulated.
For sure. And you're right, we haven't seen a towel come in for a power slap yet. It's always been gone the distance or somebody gets knocked out, right? It's going to be interesting to see the first coach or corner say, "Hey, my guy's had enough. We're not going into round 3. He's a warrior. He'd do it. I don't want him to. Get him out of there." We haven't seen that yet. I want to go back to Arizona really quickly. Dana White said that power slap has been sanctioned in 5+ states. Do you think Arizona was one of those states, or is Arizona really tight on the commission? We might not see power slap in Arizona for a while.
The thing about licensing for fighting in general is that there's a lot of politics that happen with it. Certain people who deserve to be certified to fight don't get fights, right? And it's because of the money that gets thrown around. But at the same time, Arizona is one of those places where it's very structured. There are a bunch of prerequisites you have to meet to even stand in the room, let alone to be able to actually do it, right? So we are very structured. So I think it would be a harder fight for them to get certified in Arizona than other places. But at the same time, I think that might be a better system than ones in, say, the South, where you can basically just show up, knock somebody out, and get certified. Because that doesn't, like, you can have a dude who shows up in the South who's an absolute psychopath and doesn't care at all about anything, and he'll freaking murder somebody and walk off, right? And he'll get certified. But in Arizona, that dude would go through a medical exam and he'd get disqualified. You know, so
Yeah.
it just there's ups and downs of it. There's always gonna be pros and cons to everything. But I would prefer a system that vets out people, especially if I'm fighting. I don't want that other guy to deliberately go below the line so that he can skirt the rules and possibly kill me. Like, that's not something I want to be involved with, which could also tank the sport if people like they don't want to go and they don't want the chance of going into a match like that.
For sure, right? There'll just be declining fights left and right, and then you're not going to be left with any real talent. You're going to be left with, like you said, these guys that are in there with bad intentions, and that's not what anybody really wants to see. Power Slap, Road to the Title Season 2. We know it's going to be in Dubai. Dana White said it's going to feature Russian and Polish fighters. Any information on are we going to see any American fighters out in Dubai?
I haven't heard anything about that. Like I said, there's been very little communication between me and them. Like I basically showed up, slapped, and went. Like that was it for me. But I imagine that if a company that's based in the United States hosts a fight in another country, they're gonna bring fighters from their own country. They want representation. It would be a lot like the Olympics, I would assume.
Mm-hmm. I want to go back to that real quick. So you came in, you slapped, haven't got a letter yet saying that you're no longer a part of the promotion or anything. I know some people have received letters saying like, "Hey, thank you so much for everything, but due to clause da 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 in the contract, we're no longer going forward with you as part of the promotion." You haven't received anything like that.
No. And what they told us when we signed the paper was essentially your contract it spans 2 years. If we want you to fight after you sign it, you're obligated to. But we might not call you back. Like they basically gave us an open-ended contract for X amount of time. Right. So I very well could get a call tomorrow saying, "Hey, we want you to fly to Dubai." But I have no idea. And I won't know.
Well, if you get that call, I hope you reach out to us over here to break the story. That would be super awesome. Since we're on the topic of you fighting, inspirational or perhaps dream match, what's like your ideal kind of power slap? Are you going for the money fight, or are you going to somebody like AJ who's like, I want Vern, I want to show everybody I got the chin, I'm the headbanger, I want the guy who hits the hardest? Or are you more of the I want the Conor McGregor, I want the name, I want the money fight? Where do you lead in terms of your dream fight?
I tend to err on the side of fun. For me, life is about freedom in general. And so if I'm gonna fight, sure, it's nice to get paid, but at the same time, I'm not gonna go to a fight where it's gonna be boring. So let's say we have options, right? Like Khabib or Conor McGregor caliber people, right? That is a fun fight where you get paid, you know? So I would want that fight. Not I don't really care about titles. Like it's a bit counterintuitive, but like I went through Marine Corps boot camp, you know, and I wasn't able to complete the training afterwards, right? And so I was discharged. I don't go around being like, I'm gonna freaking act like I went to war, you know? I don't care about what people call me, right? I don't care about being a champion so much as I'm just like, this guy is crazy and he's awesome and I want to fight him. You know, like if there's money that comes along with that, then so be it.
So you're definitely leaning to more like, hey, somebody offers you like the baddest man on the planet kind of fight for fun against some other like crazy fun fighter. You're taking that over like something for pure legacy. You want to go there, put on a show the world who you are, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, in general, for me, it's never if if there's a reason to fight, right? Like if I got into some internet beef with somebody and they were like, show up, like then I have a reason to fight outside of fun. But if I don't, and I typically don't because I'm just not an asshole, um, but I typically don't have a reason or a motivation to fight somebody. So for me, it just becomes fun at that point.
So I want to talk to you a little bit more about the topic of fun. Dana White has had very strict rules on UFC walkouts, especially in the start of UFC. He wanted to show the world this is a sport, this isn't WWE. No silly walkouts, no big razzle dazzle, get to the stage, compete, and that's it. With PowerSlap, we've heard that fighters get a little more freedom. We saw a little bit more showmanship, a little bit dancing around, a little more. What do? You get to walk out, PowerSlap, Apex, MGM Grand. You're a guy who likes the fun. You're telling me you got some big crazy walkout thing, dream walkout plan. Do we get a taste, or do we have to wait and see?
Well, I know that when I did the promotion, I just decided like on the spot to do a round off. It wasn't a plan, but when I was sitting in the room, I was super tired because I'd stayed up till like 2 a.m. the night before playing video games. So I decided that I would just kind of meditate. I ended up taking a nap. So they came in with the camera and woke me up. And I was like, oh crap, do I have to be awake for this? And they're like, no, you can do whatever. And I was like, all right, cool, I'm going back to sleep. And then they walked me out to the ring and I walked up the steps they had and I was like, I mean, I guess I should do something. So I did a round off, which is the cartwheel where you start straight, you do one hand, and then you land um, back with your feet placed in the opposite direction. And I mean, I just thought of it and then did it. I didn't really, I was kind of impulsive with it. I didn't really think about it. If I were to do a walkout, I probably wouldn't do dances or anything like that. Just whatever sounded the most interesting to me in my head at the time.
So no big dream razzle dazzle. You just kind of wing it in the moment. Whatever's gonna happen. You're not walking out. You don't got like a favorite Madonna song that you're gonna be walking out to and get the crowd laughing. Nothing like that.
No, not really. For the most part, like I just kind of exist in the moment. And because of that, I think that's where all of the fun stuff is going to happen, right? You're going to be standing in the fight house and someone's going to say some stupid shit and you're just going to go, yeah, I really want to deck that guy right now. Okay. And you're going to do it, you know? And that's what's going to create the sensationalism is that mentality. I was here and I'm over there and now he's on the floor.
Yeah.
If you come out with a plan, it's like you've scripted a movie.
I hear you. It's more real. It's more natural if it just kind of happens as it happens. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know you were in the middle of a workout. I really thank you for taking a minute to come talk to us. But before we leave, any final thoughts? Anything you want to let the people know?
Not really. I mean, I'm out here doing my thing. But as far as the people go, like 90% of the fight is just showing up. So do it or don't.
Awesome, man.
That's it.
Any sponsors you want to shout out? Merch store, website, anything like that? By all means, the floor is yours. Let them know.
I do wholesale real estate, and I've got some buddies who do on my team who do other stuff. If you go on Instagram and follow Alpha Sales, that's who they work with. And then for me, I'm just radically underscore successful on Instagram. And we do creative offers for homes. We do cash offers for homes. We like to help people who don't want to deal with a realtor and have the hassle, things like that. So you hit us up for that. And then I teach karate here at this park every now and then. So somebody wants to come see that, that's for them. You can shoot me a DM on Instagram for that. But that's about it.
That's not it, man. That seems pretty awesome. You just gave the world free karate lessons. All they got to do is DM you and head to the park. That seems pretty awesome. So I think your DMs might get lit up, hopefully. But thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us, man. You're still on contract. Maybe we see you in season 2. If you do, you know who to call, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, if they want to call me, I'll show up. I got no problem with it. But yeah, I'm under contract for I think another like 6, 7 months because it was a year a little bit ago. So
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, man. We're gonna let you go. Have a great day. Enjoy the rest of your workout. Sorry to interrupt. Thank you so much for your time.
no problem. Happy to help.
Have a good one.